My siestas are getting shorter and shorter. Oh, look at all the people. And welcome to Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. Hey, Michael, mi amigo, pay attention, it's showtime.
So it is, and what darling people I have sitting under me. Pierre, you rascal, you. Let's put on the show.
Mon ami, I am always ready, as you say, to put on the show. Oh, pardon, madame. That whistle was for my good friend, Fritz.
Ach, du Lieber, I almost fell out of my upper perch. Glad to see you all aboard. Sure, or wherever you are. My goodness, you're all staring at us. We better start the show rolling.
Wait. We forgot to wake up the Glee Club.
Ole, it's showtime.
In the tiki room, in the tiki room, all the birds sing word and the flowers croon. In the tiki room. Welcome to our tropical hideaway, you lucky people, you. If we weren't in the show starting right away, we'd be the audience too. All together in the tiki room, in the tiki room. All the birds sing word and the flowers croon. In the tiki room.
Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room is undoubtedly an attraction with a gilded significance and with countless assertions to support that position. An ordinary-looking place turned extraordinary. A revolutionary touchstone for audio animatronic technology. The ultimate constellation of storytelling and entertainment. But what makes this attraction earn those titles? One only needs to step into the enchanted place where birds sing words and the flowers croon to find out.
In the tiki room, in the tiki room, all the birds sing word and the flowers croon. In the tiki room.
How did Walt Disney end up creating a show starring talking birds, singing flowers, and tiki drummers? Originally, the idea sprang from Disneyland's Main Street, as Walt had intentions of creating a show inside of a Chinese restaurant that would feature an audio animatronic of Confucius. At the time, the thought of an audio animatronic human would seem unconvincing, so the plans were changed into anthropomorphic animals and inanimate objects, and the restaurant was given a tropical theme, along with changing its location to Adventureland. The team, however, realized that the combination of a pre-programmed show with a dining experience, although it may have looked great on paper, was not a practical one. So the restaurant half of the idea was dropped, and the project was refocused on the show instead. Now with a more specific Polynesian theme to work with, and a revision in story, the project was now known as the Enchanted Tiki Room, and work on the attraction's audio animatronics could begin. Early versions of AAs were already in employment at the Jungle Cruise, but the Enchanted Tiki Room would bring a new level of sophistication to that technology.
Audio animatronics?
Right, audio animatronics. Audio for sound.
See, and electronically animated by sound.
For instance, the material used to make the birds appear to breathe was influenced by a cashmere sweater Walt was wearing one day that happened to catch the clever eye of Imagineer Harriet Burns. The selected voice talent were no strangers to Disney, as some of the voice actors had already made their mark on other Disneyland attractions. Jose was voiced by Wally Bogue, Michael by Fulton Burley, Pierre by Ernie Newton, and Fritz by Thurl Ravenscroft. Bogue and Burley had worked on the Golden Horseshoe Revue, and Ravenscroft would later go on to provide voice work for the Haunted Mansion. On the musical spectrum were Richard and Robert Sherman, who composed the show's lively theme song, whereas Stanley Damerel and Tolchard Evans wrote the accompanying Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing. The Imagineers cleverly wove cultural details into the show's main characters. The colorful plumage of the four main birds, lo and behold, came to represent their nationalities. Jose's feathers are red, white, and green for Mexico. Irishman Michael is green and white. Pierre is French, so he donned red, white, and blue. And Fritz had Germany's red, black, and gold colors. The air-conditioned attraction, a first for Disneyland, opened as Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room on June 23, 1963. Boasting a cast of 225 audio animatronic figures. But that celebration would be short-lived, as the bird cast soon outnumbered the audience that came to visit the Enchanted Tiki Room. The problem was that nobody really understood what the show was about, so they never bothered to stop and see it. The attraction's secluded location also didn't help. Therefore, Imagineers decided to entice guests by introducing a fifth bird, Jose's cousin named Juan, who would serve as the attraction's barker bird and be perched above the entrance, inviting guests to come inside and see the show. The idea worked perhaps all too well. Juan's energetic vivacity attracted so many people that the narrow entrance to Adventureland would be clogged with curious guests. Once the show became a popular hit, Juan the spokesbird went into Disneyland retirement. Another factor that propelled the show in becoming a hit was the American public's fascination with Polynesian culture, due in part to the admission of Hawaii into the Union as the 50th state, 4 years prior to the opening. The attraction's subtle blending of fantasy and technology with a Polynesian atmosphere worked so well that most folks didn't seem to even be bothered to pay an additional 75 cents per person to see it. Why the extra fee? The attraction was actually owned solely by WED Enterprises, Walt's privately owned company, as opposed to Walt Disney Productions that owned and operated the park itself. Of course, a few years later, the upcharge was dropped. When Walt Disney World opened in 1971, one of the attractions that guests were able to enjoy that opening day was the Enchanted Tiki Room, renamed as Tropical Serenade. The Florida version brought with it some needed changes. The theater was larger, the waiting area was queued off, and the attraction featured a prominent pagoda structure that could not be missed by park guests. Jose, Michael, Pierre, and Fritz also welcomed a new neighbor, the Orange Bird, who could be spotted nearby at the Sunshine Tree Terrace. Tropical Serenade eventually closed in 1997 and reopened the following year as the Enchanted Tiki Room under new management. In addition to the 4 original birds, the revamped attraction featured Iago from Aladdin and Zazu from The Lion King, poking fun at the traditional show and performing modern-day musical selections. This version of the show was not well received by fans, and by 2011, after a small fire that damaged some of the figures, the original Enchanted Tiki Room attraction with the Walt Disney moniker returned to the Magic Kingdom, just in time for the park's 40th anniversary. Tokyo Disneyland's version opened with the park as a copy of the original show. By 1999, it was rethemed to a Las Vegas-styled nightclub show. It closed for a second time and replaced with a Hawaiian version inspired by Disney's 2002 animated film Lilo and Stitch. In 2004, Disneyland's Enchanted Tiki Room underwent a massive restoration project in an effort to revitalize all aspects of the attraction for the park's coveted 50th anniversary. The audio was digitally remastered, the theater was redone, and most of the audio animatronics were replaced with newer state-of-the-art figures.
In the tiki room, in the tiki room, all the birds sing words and the flowers croon. In the tiki room.
Both versions of the Enchanted Tiki Room reside in a theater in the round building at both Disneyland's and Magic Kingdom's Adventureland sections. Disneyland's waiting area sports static statues of Polynesian gods, whereas Magic Kingdom's queue features a rotating shrine that contains 2 audio animatronics that underscore what the guests will be seeing in the main show. Magic Kingdom's current show is a few minutes shorter than Disneyland's long-running show. Once the theater doors open, cast members usher guests to their seats, which all face the center of the theater. After the guest becomes settled, the main cast member introduces him or herself and welcomes all the guests to the Tiki Room. The theater lights dim as he or she ambles over to the center of the theater and with a large stick begins to goad Jose to wake up and start the show. Jose wakes up and begins a gradual introduction of each bird host, welcoming Pierre, Michael, and Fritz. Once all 4 birds have introduced themselves, the theater comes to life, filling with light and color that reveals the rest of the bird cast, who then proceed to sing the attraction's famous song. The all-female Cockatoo Chorus descends from above and begins singing the second song in the long-running act. After the birds are done with that segment, the cast enters the third and most climactic act, performing the Hawaiian war chant. The Tiki Room's flowers begin the melody, followed by the Tiki drummers found near the ceiling, and eventually the chanting totem poles join in. The chanting becomes louder and faster until finally culminating in a dramatic clap of thunder as a fierce thunderstorm can be seen forming outside the theater's encircling windows. Michael warns the other birds that they have angered the gods by celebrating, and so the act concludes. Pierre thanks the audience for attending, and the entire cast performs a quick finale, showcasing each of the talents that they all performed during the show. After convincing the audience to commit to a standing ovation, Jose, Michael, Pierre, and Fritz bid the audience farewell by executing their signature magic trick of making the audience disappear through the exit doors. Now you know why Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room has carried those distinct titles for over half a century, establishing a precedent for future theme park attractions to follow. An attraction whose fantasy elements and technical achievements are bolstered by its ability to stand the test of time, as guests of all ages continue to pay a visit to the Enchanted Tiki Room's colorful array of charming characters and their wonderfully timeless theme song.
In the tiki 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 room, in the tiki 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 room, all the birds sing word and the flowers croon. In the tiki 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 room, our magnificent production is yet to come. So strum the guitar and beat the drum. We've been a hit and we know you adore us, so come on and join us in another chorus. In the tiki 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 room, in the tiki 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 room,
A little softer.
a little louder.